Welcome to my channel. I decided to film this video, kind of short vlog, how I select my future projects, how I do my preliminary color planning and other things. This pile on my table means that I need to select one or two pictures for March color along, color with Ukraine. For March, we selected Kirovohrad region of Ukraine. It's in the central part and it's famous because of its agriculture, because of its soil and because of the beautiful nature. Not far from the capital of the region, there is a beautiful dendra park, and in spring, of course, it's full of tulips. Before the war, it was extremely popular, of course not as popular as Dutch Keukenhof, but still many families admired tulips, and we decided that March theme will be tulips. So of course the first book which I checked for tulips pictures, it was Airy Travel Around the World. I tried to find picture with the Netherlands, and well, it's beautiful. I want to do it because I love everything here, especially the girl in national costume and those wooden shoes. But well, tulips here, they are presented, but definitely not as a main element, so this one probably will wait until April, but I want to do it. And besides, I abandoned this book already for a long time, so maybe it's time to return to it. Next, I checked mythographic. I already did maybe a couple of years ago page in mythographic, another book by Alessandra Fusey with tulips, and it was inspired by Stephen King. I decided that maybe there are other similar pictures. I checked all my books, and the only one which I found, it was again in Alessandra Fusey. Where is the bookmark? Yes, here we have some tulips, and page is relatively interesting. I do love the costume here, so I want to do it, but again, maybe not as a participation for this color along. I really don't think that it's simply suitable. That tulips here, they are lovely, but indeed this composition of the page, maybe it's not the best choice, but I will remember that I want to do this page. I even started to do my color planning. It was last summer when I wanted to do at least one page in all my mythographic books, but you can see that it's still uncolored. Well, maybe, but definitely not for March color along. Of course, I checked Leila Dewley, and surprisingly, tulips were only in the Floribunda, and I will tell you terrible thing. That's probably the only flowers which I didn't like on pictures by Leila. That's the only tulips which I found. I do love different tulips, sparrow tulips, tulips with fringe, but here I think that these black lines which are pre-printed, they are too dark. I would prefer to do them myself. So this one is nice, and again I would love to return to Floribunda, but I simply don't know how to color them. Such dark lines, they limit my color choices. I don't think that with such pre-printed lines I can do light pink or light yellow tulips. It mostly means red or purple. So, well, this one I was slightly disappointed that that's the only tulips which I managed to find in Leila Dewley. I think that maybe I better do something with different flowers in Planet or Walk in the Woods, and Floribunda, well, not this month, sadly. Then, of course, I know that Kanoko Iguse, she is the queen of tulips. There are a lot of tulips in her books, and the first one which I remembered, it was in Rhapsody. That's what we have. I think that it's very lovely picture from maybe even from Netherlands, or maybe something from Germany. Beautiful architecture. But somehow the right side for me is even more interesting comparing to the left. But well, this one it could be. But then I checked my other books. In Leon's journey, I have page with many tulips. Not the kind of picture which I prefer to do. I prefer to do more like full-size pictures, but it could be done. That was the second book which I checked, and the third was Symphony. And finally, 2 years ago, in February of 2024, I started to do a page here using watercolors. I was extremely unhappy with the paper, and I discovered that many people use watercolors first as a first layer and then work on top of it with polychromos, and it helps at least to do the background. I also decided to try this technique, and I put first layer of watercolors. I decided to wait until paper is dry. It's waiting already for 2 years. This technique actually it works because later I did other pictures with watercolors. Let me show you something here. This one, that's watercolors and then pencils on top. So that page where I tried to use watercolors, it's not ruined. I simply was distracted and it stayed in as uncolored page for 2 years. But I promised myself that one day I will finish the whole book. So it's a perfect moment to continue coloring here. And honestly, yesterday I even started to do it. Those tulips I added yesterday. So that's definitely will be my first page for this color along. I just need to finish it. Here on the background I hadn't worked yet. It's simple watercolors. I decided that first I will finish the main image with Prismacolors, and then I will return and add some details to the watercolor background. I adjusted my camera a little bit because it's a nightmare to film with power banks and lamps. It's very difficult to check the right light and contrast for the videos. Oh well, okay, so that's definitely a page which I want to finish. It's a perfect moment. Apart from this one, I have another which I started and totally abandoned. I also don't know why. Maybe I just was uninspired by this background. It looked too empty. Maybe I don't know, maybe I was tired when I finished it. It's also waiting for more than a year, maybe one day, if I need something with birds to participate in color along. It will be also a happy moment for this page. For now, I plan to finish this one. In my search of tulips, I checked Klara Markova. I have 2 books and tulips I managed to find in this one. At least I think that those flowers supposed to be tulips. Sorry, but I wasn't inspired. I absolutely love the girl and the unicorn, but those tulips, because of them I don't. They are great, but they are... Okay, then they are not great. The rest of the picture is lovely. Tulips are okay, but definitely in this book I have plenty of better pictures. And you know, I accidentally opened it then on the next page, and this one is much more interesting. So sometimes when I check my books, when I try to select pictures for color along, or sometimes I have in mind color palette which I want to use somewhere. I have some ideas which subject it could be, so I check my books. Sometimes I just want to use particular art supplies and I check books where paper allows me to use it. So in such search I sometimes open my books on random pictures and I feel immediately inspired. So for me, this one is much better comparing to this one. I also will try to put it near my working area. It could be done in March, April. It has plenty of those spring flowers, and I love to color yummy things. So look at this lovely central element. Maybe it's cupcake, maybe something similar. Well, anyway, because I didn't want to do this page, I accidentally discovered this one. Maybe I will do this. And finally, those two pictures which I selected for March. One of them is in The Day We Finally Met, Korean coloring book, already very rare, but still very beautiful. I have challenging relationships with this book, mostly because of paper and because I still don't know how to do this big pictures without watercolors. I had a couple of attempts to use watercolors here. It was a nightmare, total disaster, and after that I mostly did smaller pictures like this one where I don't need to do the whole background. And every time when I look at this one, I feel sad because it's subject which I love, cute animals. I enjoy doing similar subjects in Nelko Neko book, in Kanoko Yaguza, but I somehow can't color in this one. So when I remembered that here we definitely have lovely picture with tulips and with chipmunks, I decided that, well, that's another chance which I can give to this beautiful book. That's the page which I will try to do. And second picture, I remembered very well that I have it in Lady Spring. In this book we have pictures by various Polish artists, but somehow I color here only pictures by Anna Marcinska. Not because I deliberately do it, but somehow they are easier and maybe most inspiring for me. But I hope that one day I will also do pictures by other artists. I already did several lovely spring pictures here, and I clearly remember that we also have tulip here. And look at this very elegant page. Not the easiest one, but lovely. And the most important part is that here paper is great. I definitely can do watercolor background and maybe even tulips, at least those smaller tulips with watercolor. And the girl and the main tulip I would love to do with pencils. I usually use this technique for all my pictures, which I already did here. So I think that I just need to find right colors. I think about more pastel shades for the tulips which we have around the girl, and something really vibrant, maybe purple colors for the tulip which we have in the middle. When I selected pictures which I want to do, I start to think about which art supplies to use. As I said, here I plan to combine watercolors with pencils. And as usual, my main question is color of the background. I looked at all my swatches of watercolors, and a watercolor which I really want to use somewhere, but for which I really need a good paper, it could be this granulating watercolor. Maybe from the first look it's not very matching color palette, but I think that maybe if I use this tundra green, which is a grayish green, and then if I mix it with slightly more vibrant green like this one, or maybe from other brand, something from this color palettes, it could be a good background color. Then on such relatively muted green underpaint between this one and this one, I think that it will be a good background, and several much more greenish, much more vibrant leaves I hope that it will add depth to the watercolor, and I also think that maybe some of these beautiful red colors will help me to create nice color for the tulips. So definitely I will play a little bit with watercolors to create this picture. I hope that very soon you will see what I managed to do. But at least some initial ideas which paints I want to use. I will try to do some mixes, of course, but now I have it, so it will wait near my working area. With this book, it was more difficult. Of course, the chipmunk and tulips I can easily color with Prismacolors or with polychromases. I think that for greenery I can use polychromas simply because I want to save my Prismacolors, or I just love dark green shades from polychromas. In this book I also tried to use my Mitsubishi pencils, but it was very mixed feelings. They have lovely shades, and again I grabbed several green colors. You can see that Mitsubishi color palette is very lovely indeed. Colors look natural, not extremely vibrant, and there is a good color palette, dark, mid-tone, light colors. But on this paper, which is thick but relatively smooth, they don't blend well, and it's difficult to add really deep shadows. In the beginning, when I just got pencils and I tried to use them here, I was unhappy with my shadows, and now when I'm a little bit more experienced with strange paper and difficult pencils, I learned how to combine brands. So if to these pencils I will add one Prismacolor, something like 90% cool gray or 90% warm gray, it will help me to add shadows on the leaves, because these leaves, they have quite interesting shapes, all those curves. I think that we need here quite strong shadows. Maybe I will try to use this one, because it's said to have a set of relatively nice pencils and never use them. I mostly use them now in Nelko Neko book, and even there I can use them only for very limited work for the background, because I don't like how they layer and blend for more complicated work. Maybe at least for the leaves it can work, but it means that if I do vibrant green leaves, I also need to find something for the background. I definitely don't want to spend time using pencils here. Yes, it probably would be the most controllable, the most predictable way to do. Maybe sienna brown or light amber soil to add a little bit of moss green or marine green, like soil and grass blended together. But well, it's so boring and so long. My next thought was maybe I can try using Inktense. I decided that maybe I can use different hue of greens for the background and for the leaves. So I have my green pencils as an example of the leaves, and I selected several Inktense pencils. The basic color could be, it's olivine. Olivine combines quite well with, unfortunately, all my Inktense, they lost numbers and names, so imagine how difficult to recognize them when I have problems with light. I hope that it's light olive. And also we have fern. Together they worked really well, and with them I love to use also leaf green, which looks like a mix of green with brown. I already used this olivine with leaf green. Many times, especially in Nelko, it's very helpful when you need to do grass with effect of soil visible. So this is olivine, this is leaf green, light olive, and fern. It's not the first time when I use them, obviously, and definitely not the last one. You can see that all my selected pencils, they are from yellow-green family. Nice fresh colors, perfect for spring greenery, for grass, for leaves, and leaf green works as a perfect shading and also as a perfect transition color if you want to add also brown colors to the background. As the brown colors, I have here saddle brown. Where is my leaf green? Look, that's leaf green, saddle, and the darkest burnt umber. It also a good combo. So first I thought that maybe it will work if I use these brown colors near the roots of the tulip and something from this color palette near the sides. Maybe it will work, but then I looked at these pencils and I think that it's not enough contrast. It will be mess of greens and even vibrant tulips and colorful chipmunks. It won't save my page. I think that it will be too green. Maybe I will remember about this color combo. It's very lovely. That's burnt umber. That's saddle brown and leaf green. But maybe not for this page. I planned to return to Nelko cats, and recently in Nelko I constantly use Inktense for the first layer to create background on the big landscapes. And yes, I think that it's a good preliminary planning. I already know which page I want to do. It's perfect for this Inktense. There I have cats in the forest, so all these greens, they will be very helpful. So even if I spend some time on such planning and unfortunately I won't be using it for this page, it still will be helpful for the next page. And in such way I started to think about watercolors. My first attempts to use watercolors here, they weren't very successful. But I tried to use green for grass, blue for water, and they didn't look very vibrant and clean. Maybe if I select brown colors for soil, and even if they look muted and dirty, it won't be such a problem. And anyway, on top of watercolors, I always will be able to add shadows, color accents with pencils. It still will be quicker than doing the whole background with pencils. To color all those tulips and animals will be a long work. To add myself more work with pencil background, I definitely don't want to do it. And I checked my various swatches. I think that maybe I can have some fun with different brown colors, granulating watercolors, which I own and which I don't use quite often. I think that this one maybe blended with other colors, can be quite helpful here. At least on such background, green leaves will create very beautiful contrast. That's the page where I plan to use Inktense color combos which we just tested. But now I will play with some of my watercolors. I decided that maybe for the central part I can use this very muted pale ochre with earthy green. They behave quite strange together, and normally I would never mix them, but I tried reminding myself that what I try to show here is actually soil and grass. So maybe for such purposes, this blend, which looks interesting but at the same time it's not very vibrant, maybe it can work. And together with them, I can use my cobalt brown. Cobalt brown is more reddish, so I'm not sure about this one. It shows interesting granulating texture, but only on good paper. I'm not sure how it would behave there. But at least this muted brown I can achieve. So maybe cobalt brown or maybe golden brown, which probably... Normally, I would call these mixes very ugly, but for soil in the garden, it can work. I don't know if you can see with my camera, but here that granulating effect started. And I would say that something from these paints I definitely will try to apply. Such background, it's much better contrast to the green leaves. If I manage to achieve some granulating effect, great. If no, I simply will use them as brown colors and later I can add more color accents with pencils. So I think that it will be my first step. Look here, another granulation here and here. They are lovely, those paints. The only problem is that not all papers are suitable and it's very difficult to be sure how they would behave. For example, I do love paper in crystal vocal, but in that book, all my granulating watercolors, they absolutely don't work and never show any granulating effect. And I used granulating paints from different brands and nothing works in crystal vocal. Even if paper there is quite good, it doesn't bleed through, but it also doesn't show granulating effect. So you mostly need to use regular watercolors and that's all. So I think that it will be more wise first step to use those watercolors, and that's how I plan to start doing this page. Honestly, I already have so many unsuccessful attempts with this book that even if this page won't be beautiful, even if I decide in the middle of coloring to abandon it, I won't have any regrets, because again, it's like the last chance for this one to be back on my working table, to be colored, because I can't explain for myself why such lovely pictures I can't start coloring in it. So maybe indeed it will be a good point to test paper again. After I decided about which pictures with tulips I will use for coloring, my second task for today will be to decide how I can proceed with Epic World of Tolkien, book which I love, but which I don't color frequently because of the paper. And here I have plenty of pictures which I want to do. For example, this one. And this one is even not very complicated because at least the background isn't that big and I can do it even with pencils. The only reason why I don't start to do it right now, simply because of this orc. It's very similar to the troll which I colored recently, so it will be very it feels like a repetition of previous work, so I would love to do something slightly different and then next to do this one. But this one is lovely, so I will keep a bookmark here. The next, it's this spread. Of course, they are not related, but when I did this page, I remembered how much I loved picture on the left. And here my initial thought was to do very simple blue background. I even tried to cover this background area with gesso. When 3 years ago I experimented with gesso, I still can feel this unpleasant feeling from gesso. But now when I look at this one, I think that blue, it's simply very boring, not very original, and I prefer to do something more dramatic in this book. And then I actually check that they are not the positive characters and we need something more bloody, something adding touch of drama. So for this one, I need to find how I want to do this background. How to color horses and warriors, it's not a problem. Background is a problem. We will return to this one in a moment. I will show you the rest of pictures which I want to do. For this two, I think that I need to do only one of them because they are similar but just made by various artists. You know that in this book we have works on the Tolkien theme but created by various 2 or 3 artists. And that's the first one. Beautiful, dramatic, exactly what I love to color. You know, I recently noticed that with this dark mood and very challenging, depressing 2 months which we have here, January, February, very difficult. I want to color either very dark pictures, something really dark, or something extremely colorful. I have two edges. That's how strange my minds work. Well, anyway, so that's page number 1, and I think that it's more interesting. But before I can do this one, I have similar. That's the same subject, different artist. And for both pictures, again, I need something with the background. Obviously, the main figure of Sauron I can do with black and gray colors. Here we don't have even choice, so that's black. And the most obvious choice for the background is something inspired by fire, orange, red, maybe even purple. In such palette it will work both here and here. I even think that maybe I will test colors here, and if this one won't work well, then I can do this one, which is actually more beautiful. But I imagine them in similar color palettes. For me, the only 2 media which work here is Inktense and gouache. So I grabbed my Inktense palette. Where is my Inktense palette? Sorry for the interruption. Here is my Inktense palette, and that's Inktense which I have in pens. I think that pens are more suitable for this relatively big background. Fortunately, Inktense don't create this ugly effect of dots, which we have with regular watercolors. So I think that something from this area, bright orange, cherry, poppy red, maybe even blended with colors like red oxide, dark plum. Well, on this paper you can add dark watercolors. Dark watercolors are less prone to creating this dot effect. It's light colors which create total disaster. So light colors I can use from Inktense. How to add dramatic dark colors, I will see. Maybe that's how I will do the background. Now I just need to decide to be more to decide and to do the page which I prefer the most, or to be a coward and to do this one, which is also not bad. I definitely won't be doing 2 pages, so I will think, and when I do final decision, I think that definitely this idea of everything with such underpaint and then main character with shades of black, maybe with addition of black raspberry or black grape for highlights on the armor, I think that it can work. I will leave it here. Actually, the left side is also lovely, but I don't think that right now I want to do all this stone work, but it's not bad. And now about those warriors. Here, when I think about background, my first idea is to use something like Potter pink. Then, if I add red flags and maybe dark brown horses or black horses, it will look interesting and at least not as traditional as just blue sky. But not sure how this Potter pink or my other Potter pinks would behave. This one is the most opaque. That's from Kuretake, and they are usually more opaque and closer to gouache comparing to Potter pinks, which I own from different brands. So maybe I will try this one. But I also want to play a little bit with my gouache paints. My second idea is to have cream base, cream similar to this one, that's Ukrainian Rosa gouache, and it could be the base. And then a little bit of clouds or simply gradient from such dirty pink, dirty peach into this cream. Maybe it can work. I have several similar colors, but these two somehow they don't work very well. I think that I will keep this cream as a base, and the rest of colors I will try to mix. I also have Artisa gouache. It's lovely, and here it has such interesting muted shades like taupe or toffee or tan, and actually tan could be a good choice, but still I think that maybe I want something pinkish. And set which I received for this new year or this Christmas, it's Hime, Chinese brand, extremely popular. I can't say that it's my favorite. Definitely I prefer Polish or Ukrainian or even Artisa, but I have these pastel colors which actually are not very pastel, and by themselves I don't think that any of these colors will work for my idea. But if I blend them and make them more muted, maybe it can work. I saw that people can create quite interesting muted shades by blending basic color with black. For me it sounds very unusual, and now I really want to try it myself, and colors which maybe I can use with my idea to match base with such pale. Maybe it could be this Naples yellow and this light princess. So I think that I will try to play a little bit with mixing this gouache. They look like those small jars, whatever we can call them. My main reason why I am not a huge fan of them, it's because they are, it's difficult to keep them still liquid. I have quite dry premises even during winter, so they dry very quickly. Of course, when it's closed like this one or in such jars, it's much easier to keep it creamy and not dry. So I'm a little bit preoccupied that I constantly need to seal it and to wet it, especially when I don't use it very frequently. So that's one color which maybe I can use, and second which I selected is this light princess. I hope that something from these colors, blending them either with white or with black, I can mix, and that in such way I can do this unusual background. I know that I can achieve similar effect by just covering this background with pencils. It's not big, but it's also my own way to learn better gouache. I love these art supplies, but for me it's still a terra incognita. I have such a huge problems doing even simple backgrounds with gouache, but I want to master it. It's difficult for me to feel right amount of water to be able to blend colors on paper and to create gradient, and in the same time to add only small amount of water to keep gouache opaque and creamy and matte also. So it's difficult. I don't feel it at all, but I really want to master it. So it's not because I can't do this background with pencils, it's because I want to use this book for practice. It's not the most precious books, and we have plenty of similar pictures as I show you on Sauron portrait, so you can experiment, and if you're not very happy with the result, you can start again and to try doing something slightly different. I hope that after such practice I will be using my gouache more frequently, and I will finally be able to use this set somewhere, because colors are interesting, but right now I don't have any idea how and where I can use them. Well, I had fun blending my main colors of gouache with white and with black. Indeed, you can get much more interesting colors which I considered too vibrant. When I dilute them with white gouache, colors are much more pleasant, and I hope that something from this page I will manage to use for the background. But what is even more interesting, I definitely think that if my idea with using brown watercolors for tulip background, if it doesn't work, and it maybe it won't work, because you can see that after drying it looks quite light. Granulating effect is more visible, but general color is lighter comparing to what I would love to see on that page. So as an option number 2, I definitely can use something from this page. This russet red gouache blended with a little bit of black. Maybe it will give me also a possible color for that background. Now, after such fun practice, I have plenty of ideas and I can finally do actual colorings. I hope that in my next videos you will see results and those pictures which we discussed in this video in full color. Thank you for watching and for listening, and until my next videos.